Jack Carter stepped off the small shuttle and let the ramp close behind him. The air smelled of dust and old metal. For most people, the starport looked like a place that had been abandoned for decades. Broken cranes leaned at strange angles. Cargo containers lay scattered across cracked concrete, some half buried in red sand that had blown in from the nearby desert. The lights on the control tower flickered occasionally, powered by old solar panels that still managed to work. Jack smiled, a rare feeling of relief washing over him. This was exactly what he wanted. He had spent years running from contracts, debts, and endless paperwork. Space stations and busy ports made his head ache. Ships arriving every few minutes, alarms that never stopped, rules that changed by the hour. He had served on transport fleets and cargo ships across the galaxy, and finally, he was done. Jack wanted nothing more than to sit in one quiet place and just exist. The deserted starport on the edge of the dust veil seemed perfect. No one to bother him. No one to watch him. Just metal, sand, and the slow hum of old machinery. Jack carried a small bag with basic tools and his personal effects. He had a bed, some food, and enough water for a few weeks. He also brought a small terminal connected to an old solar generator so he could monitor weather and occasional passing traffic. He walked through the main hangar, his boots echoing in the silence. Rust covered most of the walls, and the smell of oil and dust filled the air. Old cranes hung from the ceiling like skeletons. Broken control panels blinked faintly as if the port itself was half awake, waiting for someone to care. Jack spent the first day cleaning. He didn't rush. He wanted to know every corner of the place. He climbed the main control tower, carefully checking old screens and sensors. Some still worked, showing flickers of stars and the empty space around the station. He traced wires that had once been part of a complex docking system. It was a puzzle, but one that gave him a strange sense of purpose. Jack hummed to himself as he worked. No one was around to hear him, and that was just how he liked it. By the second day, he had set up his bed in a quiet corner of the main hangar. Dust had piled up over decades, but he wiped it away carefully. He set up his tools along one wall, neatly organized. A few old cargo crates became shelves. He even found a small hydroponic bay, long abandoned, and managed to get a few plants growing. Tomatoes and lettuce. Not much, but enough to make him feel alive. Jack often stared at the slow growth of the plants and thought about how humans could adapt. Even in a place this abandoned, he could create life where nothing existed before. Evenings were his favorite. He would climb to the top of the control tower and watch the sun sink behind the dust hills. Red light filled the hangars and reflected off the old metal surfaces. He could hear the faint hum of the old power systems, and sometimes the wind would whistle through broken windows. It was peaceful. No one was shouting, no one was demanding attention, and no alarms were ringing. Jack imagined that this would be the rest of his life. Simple, quiet, and safe. By the third day, Jack began exploring the outer sections of the starport. There were old warehouses. Some collapsed, some still standing. He found a storage bay with broken cargo bots and managed to repair one. The bot could carry crates for him, and that made his work easier. He found old fuel tanks and managed to patch leaks. Nothing in the starport had been maintained for years, but it was built solidly. Jack smiled as he realized that humans could make things that lasted. Even in the middle of nowhere, humans could leave behind something strong enough to survive decades of neglect. One evening, Jack heard a strange sound. It was soft, almost like a whisper, coming from deep inside one of the larger warehouses. He froze, listening. His heart beat faster, though he didn't know why. He grabbed a flashlight and walked toward the noise. Dust stirred under his boots. When he reached the warehouse, he saw nothing at first. Just crates, broken machinery, and the red glow of the setting sun filtering through cracks. Then, he noticed movement in the corner. A small drone, powered down and covered in dust, had activated on its own. Its single eye flickered as if confused. Jack knelt and examined it. Its circuits were old, but it was alive. Jack spent the next few days repairing the drone. He gave it a name chip. It moved slowly at first, but soon it followed him around the starport, carrying small items and helping with repairs. Jack laughed when Chip accidentally knocked over a crate, spilling old parts everywhere. He realized that even in solitude, companionship was possible in small forms. The drone became his partner, his helper, and even a little friend. He talked to it while working, explaining what he was doing and why. It was silly, but it made the place feel alive. As the week passed, Jack discovered more about the starport. Old docking bays had been converted into storage areas. Cranes were half repaired, and many systems could be restored with a little effort. He found old navigation beacons, some of which still broadcast weak signals into space. Jack imagined travelers, long gone, who had relied on this port. He felt a strange connection with them. Even though no one was here now, humans had built this, maintained it, and left their mark. It gave him a sense of pride. He was part of a long chain of people who built and left something behind. On the 10th day, Jack climbed the control tower at night to watch the stars. The dust storms had cleared, leaving the sky sharp and clear. He could see distant planets and the faint glow of passing ships, though none came close. He sat quietly, listening to the hum of the old power systems and the soft movements of Chip in the hangar below. He thought about the past. How many humans had served the galaxy, built stations, fought battles, and then disappeared? He had been one of them. Now, he wanted only quiet. Then he noticed something strange. A small light flickered in the distance, beyond the starport perimeter. At first, he thought it was a reflection of a satellite. Then, it moved. Not like a ship, but like something scanning, methodically searching the area. Jack felt a cold shiver run down his spine. He had believed the starport was deserted, safe, and untouched. But now, for the first time, he felt that he might not be alone. He scanned the horizon with binoculars and saw the faint outline of a large vessel, bigger than anything he had seen in years. It hovered silently, almost regal, as if it had waited a long time for something. Jack returned to the hangar and checked every system. He made sure all power lines were secure, repaired a few more control panels, and even reinforced the main entrance. He prepared quietly, not knowing what to expect. Every instinct, from his years of service, told him to be ready. For decades, he had thought humans were weak against larger enemies, that diplomacy and stealth were the only ways to survive. Yet here, in the middle of nowhere, humans had built something lasting, something strong enough that even he could defend it with careful planning. The next morning, the vessel came closer. Jack watched as it slowly descended near the edge of the starport. Its metal reflected the sun, and strange symbols ran along its hull. He did not recognize the language, but the markings made him uneasy. He had learned to read intentions from movement. This vessel was deliberate. It was not a passing trader, and it was not lost. It had come for this place. Jack took a deep breath. He had expected solitude, quiet, and safety. Instead, he was about to discover that even the most abandoned places had owners. And sometimes, those owners did not forget. He tightened his grip on the tools at his side, ready for whatever would come next. He had built his little world here, repaired what was broken, and made a place for himself. Now, it was about to be tested. As the alien vessel settled on the edge of the starport, Jack realized that this was only the beginning. For years, he had thought he could retire quietly, live in peace, and let time pass. But humans had a way of leaving marks that lasted longer than they imagined. And sometimes, the galaxy remembered those marks when they were least expected. Jack looked out at the alien ship and whispered to himself, "Let's see what they want." Jack Carter watched from the top of the control tower as the large alien vessel settled on the edge of the starport. Its hull was smooth and shiny, unlike anything he had seen before. Strange symbols ran along its sides, glowing faintly in the red sunlight. The air hummed with energy, and Jack felt it in his bones. He had faced danger before, but this was different. This was not a raider, not a trader, not a ship lost in the desert. This was deliberate. It had come for him, or for this place. He climbed down slowly, keeping his movements quiet. Chip followed, its small light blinking like an eager companion. Jack checked the hangar doors, the power systems, and the small defenses he had prepared. They were basic, but enough to give him a chance if anything went wrong. He had built this place from scratch in just a few weeks, repairing old systems and making them work. The starport was no longer abandoned. It had life, energy, and now, attention. A ramp extended from the alien ship. Jack stepped back and watched. He had expected a small landing party, maybe a single scout. Instead, a figure appeared. She stepped down with grace, tall and strong, wearing a suit of polished metal that seemed alive. Her eyes were sharp and intelligent, and her presence alone demanded attention. Jack could tell she was the captain, the leader, the one who had brought this ship here. "I am Tala," she said, her voice clear and strong, though not harsh. Jack could not understand her language fully, but he understood the meaning. She was claiming ownership, announcing authority. Jack straightened and nodded slowly. "Jack Carter," he said. "I live here now." He did not lie, though he knew it might sound strange. This was his home, and he had made it work. He had repaired systems, grown plants, and even brought life back to this place. It was more than abandoned, it was human. Tala studied him carefully. She looked at the control tower, the hangars, and the small lights blinking from repaired terminals. She frowned slightly, as if something did not match her expectations. Her ship, her territory, had been untouched for decades. Yet here was a human, small and ordinary, standing where she had not expected anyone to stand. "You are not supposed to be here," she said. Her words were firm, but there was curiosity in her tone. She stepped closer, scanning Jack with her eyes. "This station belongs to me. You cannot stay." Jack shrugged. It was empty, broken. No one cared about it. "I fixed it. I live here now." He did not raise his voice, but his words carried certainty. He had built more than she imagined. Humans had a strange way of leaving things stronger than they found them. Even a forgotten place could be rebuilt. Tala's expression shifted. She had expected fear, panic, or submission. Instead, she saw calm, confidence, and intelligence. It was unusual. Most creatures she encountered either ran or argued. Jack simply explained. She frowned again, scanning the systems she had thought were useless. Terminals blinked with activity, cranes moved smoothly, and small drones hovered around, repaired and active. "You repaired this?" she asked, her voice quiet this time. "Yes," Jack said. "It was broken. Now it works." Tala's eyes narrowed. She had not expected this. She was a commander, a leader, trained to reclaim property, enforce rules, and collect what belonged to her. She had not expected a human to rebuild a station that even her scouts had called irreparable. She realized she had underestimated humans. Jack noticed the change in her expression. He smiled slightly. Humans were good at survival. Even when forgotten, abandoned, and alone, they could make things work. This starport was proof. He had seen humans survive against odds far greater than hers. She did not know it yet, but he was dangerous not in a fight, but in ingenuity. Tala stepped back and raised a hand, signaling her ship. A small shuttle detached and hovered nearby. Several figures appeared inside, armed and ready. Jack did not panic. He had repaired the old turrets and control systems. He had traps ready, careful systems he had designed, in case anyone tried to take the starport by force. He did not want to fight, but he would defend what he had built. "Why are you here?" Jack asked. He kept his voice calm, steady, like he had faced danger before. "I came to reclaim my property," Tala said. Her eyes scanned the hangars, and she noticed something she had not expected. The cranes, once broken, moved smoothly. The doors, once jammed, opened with a hiss. Even the small power systems hummed efficiently. "This is impossible," she muttered. "It should not work. Everything here should be dead." Jack shrugged. "Humans fix things. We like to make broken things work." Tala studied him closely. There was something different about humans, she realized. They were small, fragile, and weak compared to her species. Yet, they had persistence, intelligence, and patience. Even in an empty, abandoned starport, they could build something stronger than she had imagined. She frowned. She had underestimated this species for decades. "I should remove you," she said. "It is not allowed for anyone to occupy this station without permission." Jack shook his head. "Permission is useless if no one came for years. This place was dead. I brought it back to life. I live here." Crime. Tala's lips pressed together. She did not understand why he was so calm. Most would beg, plead, or flee. Humans rarely stayed where they had no protection, no allies, and no fleet. Yet here was one, standing firm, facing her without fear. She felt a mixture of respect and irritation. "I will leave you for now," she said finally. "But know this. The station belongs to me. You are trespassing." Jack nodded. "I understand. But I will not leave." He had nowhere else to go. He had wanted a quiet place, and he had found it. No one had built this starport for centuries, and now it was his home. Tala's ship began to lift slightly, as if preparing to leave. Jack watched, curious. He did not expect her to return, but something told him this was only the beginning. Humans rarely faced entire fleets, but they had a strange way of making themselves important. This starport was proof. He had built more than a home. He had built a challenge. The next day, Jack continued his repairs, but he did so with caution. He double-checked power systems, reinforced old hangar doors, and programmed the small drones to patrol key areas. He felt the presence of the alien ship even after it had left. It was out there, scanning, calculating, and waiting. Jack smiled slightly. Humans had always been underestimated, and often, underestimation was their greatest weapon. In the following days, he explored more of the station, repairing long-forgotten systems. He found old communication arrays, still functional, with minor repairs. He tested them, sending out weak signals into space. A small flicker returned. A faint reply from a distant trader. It reminded him that the galaxy still existed outside the Red Desert. People traveled, fought, traded, and survived. And now, he was part of that galaxy again, even if the alien owner would not allow it. Jack also spent time observing the sky. He watched for ships, satellites, and anything unusual. He studied the alien symbols he had seen on Tala's ship, trying to understand meaning. He drew sketches, made notes, and even repaired an old scanner to detect the ship if it returned. He felt alive again. Even in solitude, even in danger, he was learning, thinking, and preparing. Humans thrived in such moments. One evening, As the sun dipped behind the desert hills, Jack heard the familiar hum of engines. He looked up and saw Tala's ship returning, even larger and closer this time. She had not forgotten. She had come back to see what the human had done. Jack tightened his grip on his tools and walked toward the control tower. Chip hovered nearby, ready to assist. Tala's ramp descended, and she stepped out again. This time, her expression was less harsh, more cautious. She looked around at the repaired starport, at the humming systems, and at the small human standing calmly before her. She realized this was no ordinary trespasser. This human had created life, energy, and defense in a place she thought useless. "You are stronger than I expected," she said. Jack shrugged. "I do not fight unless I have to. I fix things because I can. I survive because humans survive." Tala studied him in silence. She had underestimated humans for centuries. Now, Trees, she began to understand that strength was not always measured in size, weapons, or fleets. Sometimes, it was patience, ingenuity, and the courage to stand alone against the galaxy. The starport had a new life. Humans had built it again. And Tala realized, slowly, that taking it by force would not be simple. She would need to understand this human, and perhaps even respect him. Jack watched the alien commander for a long moment. He had expected confrontation, conflict, or negotiation. Instead, he saw curiosity, hesitation, and a recognition of something she had never faced before. The galaxy was large, dangerous, and unpredictable, but humans had a way of surviving, of making themselves important, even in places forgotten by time. Jack smiled slightly. "Welcome back," he said quietly. Tala blinked, surprised by his words. She had come to reclaim a station. Instead, she had found something unexpected. A human who had built life where there was none, and who would not be moved easily. For the first time, she wondered if humans were not just survivors, but something more. Something the galaxy often ignored. But never for long. Jack Carter woke before the sun rose, the red glow of the desert still hidden behind the dunes. Tala's ship had left again the night before, but her presence lingered in the back of his mind. He could feel it, even from the control tower. Her eyes had seen the starport, his repairs, and his small drone companion, Chip. She had underestimated humans before. Now, he knew she would think twice. But Jack did not wait for her judgment. He prepared. He walked through the hangars, checking every system. Old cranes, once rusted and useless, now moved with smooth precision. Doors sealed tightly, powered by circuits he had repaired. Fuel tanks and power conduits were patched and tested. He checked the communication arrays, making sure signals could reach the nearby sector. Chip hovered beside him, carrying small tools and parts in its tiny arms. Together, they made the station ready. Jack thought about what might come. The galaxy rarely left humans alone, especially one who had rebuilt a forgotten station. He knew other ships might come. Raiders or curious traders. Humans had survived against odds far greater than this. He trusted his experience and his careful preparation. By mid-morning, the horizon flickered with movement. A small fleet appeared. Ships he had never seen before. Sleek and fast. Their markings were unfamiliar, but their intent was clear. They were aggressive, and they were headed straight for the starport. Jack did not panic. He had expected this. Humans were rarely underestimated in combat because they lacked numbers or size. They were underestimated because they fought differently. They adapted, thought, and survived. Jack activated the old turrets. He had repaired them, even upgraded some using spare parts he had found. They were small, by modern standards, but they were precise. Chip moved along the corridors, activating control panels and preparing defensive systems. Jack climbed to the main observation deck and watched the approaching fleet. They were fast, but he had calculated their likely paths. Every entrance to the hangar, every approach to the docking bays, had been prepared. The first ships arrived at the outer perimeter. Jack held his breath and then gave a quiet command. The turrets fired. Beams of concentrated energy struck the ship's hulls. One exploded in a flash of light, spinning in the air before falling to the desert below. The others maneuvered, surprised by the sudden resistance. Jack smiled slightly. Humans were not the strongest, but they were clever. Even old systems, repaired and used wisely, could change the course of battle. Tala's ship appeared on the horizon, closer than before. She had returned with a fleet, and she watched carefully, her expression unreadable. Jack realized she had come to see if he could survive, if humans could actually defend something of value. He did not care what she thought. This was his home now, and he would defend it. The raiders tried to surround the starport. They believed its defenses were weak, broken, and scattered. Jack let them come. He had studied human history, battles that seemed impossible, but were won by clever minds. He waited for the right moment. When the fleet entered the main approach corridor, Jack activated traps he had prepared. Old cargo cranes swung down like massive arms, crushing the first wave of ships. Fuel silos were detonated carefully, sending controlled plasma bursts toward enemy ships. The raiders did not expect the starport itself to fight back. They had assumed humans were weak, stationary, and predictable. They were wrong. Jack moved through the control center with calm efficiency. Chip followed, activating smaller defense drones and opening escape hatches for critical systems. Every move had been planned. Every system repaired and ready. The raiders lost ship after ship. They could not believe a single human could turn an abandoned starport into a war machine. Tala watched in silence. Her eyes followed Jack as he coordinated the defense. He did not shout orders. He did not panic. He moved with calm purpose, using every tool, every system, every piece of human ingenuity at his disposal. She realized then that humans were underestimated not because they were weak, but because their strength was in thinking differently, in surviving where others would fail. The battle continued for hours. Jack anticipated the raiders' every move. He had repaired old scanners, used control panels to misdirect approaching ships, and activated automated defenses at exactly the right time. He had no fleet, no modern warships, only what he had built with his hands and clever use of old technology. Yet he held the starport. He had transformed a forgotten place into a fortress. By evening, the raider fleet was in retreat. Jack had disabled their engines, shredded their hulls, and forced them to flee. He checked the systems carefully. Nothing was damaged beyond repair, thanks to careful planning and human foresight. Chip buzzed happily, carrying tools to help with minor repairs. Jack smiled, tired, but satisfied. Humans had survived again, using brains instead of numbers, ingenuity instead of brute force. Tala landed near the main hangar. She stepped out slowly, observing the starport and the small human who had defeated a fleet without even leaving the station. Her armor reflected the red desert light, and her eyes were sharp and calculating. She had seen humans before, but never like this. They were unpredictable, capable, and fearless when necessary. "You defended this station," she said quietly. "Alone?" Jack nodded. "Humans survive. We adapt. We think." Tala studied him. She realized that taking the starport by force would not be simple. Even with her fleet, she could not have predicted the traps, the systems, or the calm efficiency of one human. Humans were underestimated because they were clever, patient, and willing to fight differently than anyone expected. Jack walked to the observation deck. He looked out at the retreating fleet, The starport had survived. He had survived. Humans had survived again. Tala remained silent, realizing that the galaxy often ignored humans at its own risk. She had underestimated their ability to rebuild, to defend, and to survive against impossible odds. "Why did you fight?" she asked finally. Jack shrugged. "Because this is my home, and because humans do not give up when we have something worth protecting." Tala's expression softened slightly. She had come to reclaim property, but she had found something more. She had found a species that could survive against overwhelming odds, using intelligence, patience, and ingenuity. She had underestimated them before, but not now. Jack returned to his control center, checking systems and making minor repairs. He knew the battle might not be over. Others might come. The galaxy rarely left humans alone when they showed strength, but he was ready. Humans had survived worse, using brains instead of brawn, strategy instead of size. As night fell, Jack climbed to the top of the control tower. Chip hovered beside him, lights blinking softly. The stars shone brightly over the red desert. The battle had been won, but the galaxy was vast. Others would come, but humans had a way of making themselves important. Jack smiled. Humans had rebuilt the abandoned starport. Humans had defended it against impossible odds. And humans would continue to survive, even when the galaxy thought they could not. Tala watched him from below, realizing that humans were more than she had imagined. They were small, fragile, and weak by appearance, but they had courage, patience, and intelligence. They adapted, survived, and overcame challenges others could not. Jack looked at the starport, at the systems he had repaired, at Chip buzzing happily around him. This place had once been abandoned, forgotten, and lifeless. Now, it was alive. Humans had built it again, and they would defend it. Tala realized that her arrival had not ended this story. It had only begun. Humans were unpredictable. They survived where others failed. And sometimes, even the most abandoned places could become strong, clever, and dangerous under human hands. Jack turned back to the control panels. More repairs, more improvements, more preparation. Humans did not stop when others said it was impossible. They adapted. They fought. They survived. And they did not retreat from challenges. The night was quiet, except for the soft hum of the repaired systems and the gentle buzz of Chip. Jack looked out at the stars. The galaxy was vast, full of danger and opportunity. He had survived this challenge, but he knew more would come. And he smiled, knowing that humans were ready. The red sun rose slowly over the desert, casting long shadows across the starport. Jack Carter had not slept much. Even though the battle had been won the day before, he knew the galaxy rarely left humans alone when they showed strength. Other ships could come. Other challenges could appear. He walked through the hangar, checking every system once again. Old cranes moved smoothly, doors opened without hesitation, and the turrets were fully powered. Chip buzzed happily beside him, carrying tools and performing minor repairs. Jack went to the control tower and looked out across the desert. The horizon was empty, except for the faint glimmer of distant stars and passing ships far away. He smiled slightly. The starport had survived the attack. He had survived. Humans had survived again. It was what they did best. They adapted. They thought. And they endured, even in the most hopeless situations. Tala's ship appeared on the horizon again, this time closer than ever. Jack did not panic. He had expected this. She had returned, not to attack, but to observe. Her eyes scanned the starport carefully, taking in every repaired system, every active turret, and every small drone buzzing along the corridors. She had underestimated humans before, But now she understood something she had not seen in centuries. A human's patience, intelligence, and determination could make even an abandoned starport into a fortress. Jack met her gaze as she stepped down from her ship. Tala's expression was calm, controlled, but there was a hint of respect in her eyes. She did not speak immediately. Instead, she walked slowly through the hangars, touching the cranes and scanning the terminals. It was clear that she wanted to understand, not destroy. Humans were unpredictable, and this one had shown her why. "You rebuilt this," she said finally, her voice quiet. "Alone?" Jack nodded. "Alone, with some help from Chip. This station was broken. No one cared about it. Now it works." Tala studied him carefully. She had arrived expecting to reclaim her property, to find a weak, abandoned station. Instead, she had found life, energy, and intelligence. She had watched him defend it against impossible odds, turning what should have been a simple attack into a disaster for her fleet. She realized that humans were not weak, even when they appeared small. "You are not like any human I have met," she said. "You are dangerous." Jack smiled slightly. "Dangerous? Maybe. But humans survive. We fix what is broken, and we fight when we must." Tala considered his words. She had traveled across the galaxy, dealing with species that relied on strength, weapons, and fleets. Humans relied on something different. They relied on thinking, patience, and courage. Jack had proven that one human could change the outcome of a battle, and even a fleet could not easily defeat him. "I could take this station," Tala said. "I could destroy it and leave nothing." Jack shook his head. "You could try, but you would not succeed. Humans do not give up easily. We survive where others fail." Tala's eyes narrowed. She had come to reclaim property, but she was learning that this human had built more than a station. He had built a challenge. A human mind was unpredictable, clever, and patient. Even the most abandoned place could become strong under human hands. She realized that attacking would be costly. She would need to negotiate, or she would lose more than she gained. Jack walked to the main observation deck. Chip hovered beside him, lights blinking softly. He looked at Tala and spoke calmly. "We can make this work. You want the station? I want to stay. Humans can find a way to make things last, even when others say it is impossible." Tala studied him in silence. She had never met a human like this, one who did not beg, run, or fight recklessly. He had patience, intelligence, and courage. He had rebuilt life in a place forgotten by the galaxy. She realized that humans were not weak. They were clever, persistent, and willing to fight differently than anyone expected. Finally, she nodded. "I will not take it by force. Not yet. You have proven yourself. I will leave it with you, for now. But know this: the galaxy watches, and humans are not easily ignored." Jack smiled. "Good. Then we have an agreement. You watch. I live. The station survives. Everyone wins." Tala studied the systems one last time. She saw the repaired turrets, the smooth-moving cranes, and the small drones buzzing along the corridors. She understood that Jack had not only rebuilt the starport, but he had also turned it into something no one could easily take. Humans had a strange way of surviving, of making themselves important, even in places long forgotten. Over the next few days, Tala and Jack began a cautious partnership. She provided knowledge of galactic trade routes and some advanced technology she carried on her ship. Jack shared his understanding of the station and the clever systems he had rebuilt. Together, they made the starport stronger, more efficient, and ready for anything. Jack did not need her help, but he accepted it. Humans survived by learning, adapting, and using every resource wisely. Word spread quietly. Traders, scouts, and travelers began arriving at the station, curious about the human who had rebuilt it and the alien commander who now watched over it. Jack welcomed them, offering repairs, safe docking, and information. Humans were not just survivors, they were connectors, builders, and protectors. Even in the middle of a desert, at the edge of the galaxy, they could create life and order. Tala observed quietly. She realized that humans were more than she had imagined. They were small, fragile, and underestimated by many. But they had patience, intelligence, and courage. They adapted where others failed. They could survive alone, but they also knew how to build alliances when necessary. Jack had shown her this clearly. One evening, as the red sun set over the desert, Jack climbed the control tower. He looked out at the starport, at the bustling hangars, and at the small drones moving efficiently through corridors. He felt a deep sense of pride. Humans had rebuilt life where there was none. They had defended it, survived attacks, and made it strong. Even in the most dangerous situations, they could thrive. Tala approached quietly. She stood beside him, watching the stars. "I underestimated humans," she said softly. "Not anymore." Jack smiled. "Most do, but we survive anyway." The station was no longer abandoned. It had life, trade, and purpose. Humans had made it strong, clever, and resilient. The galaxy might challenge them again, but humans had a way of adapting that others rarely expected. Jack had proved it, and the starport was proof of human ingenuity and courage. Tala turned to leave, her ship ready. She had come to claim property, but she left with a different understanding. Humans were not just survivors, they were builders, fighters, and thinkers. She would not underestimate them again. Jack watched her go. Chip hovered beside him, lights blinking softly. The station was safe, repaired, and alive. Humans had survived again. They had shown that even in forgotten corners of the galaxy, they could build, defend, and thrive. Jack smiled as he walked through the hangars. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, but humans had a way of making themselves important. They adapted, survived, and protected what mattered. Even one human, alone, could change the outcome of battles and rebuild life in a place forgotten by time. The starport thrummed with energy, lights blinking, systems humming. Chip buzzed happily, carrying small tools and performing minor repairs. Jack looked out at the desert, at the ships passing far away, and at the stars above. He knew more challenges would come, more enemies, and more tests of human ingenuity. But he was ready. Humans always were. The galaxy would remember this starport, and it would remember Jack Carter. Humans were not weak. They were clever, persistent, and strong in ways others did not expect. They could rebuild, defend, and survive, even against overwhelming odds. Tala's ship disappeared into the horizon, but her presence lingered. She had learned a lesson about humans that she would never forget. They were small, underestimated, and unpredictable, and they could change the galaxy, even from the most forgotten places. Jack stood in the control tower, watching the desert and the stars. The red sun had fully risen, casting light on the starport and the bustling hangars. Humans had built, defended, and survived again. And the galaxy had taken notice, whether it liked it or not. Jack smiled, looking out at the endless desert and the distant stars. Humans had survived impossible odds, rebuilt life where there was none, and proved that even the smallest, simplest species could leave a mark across the galaxy. And for Jack Carter, the abandoned starport was no longer a place to retire. It was a home, a fortress, and a reminder that humans were never weak, never small, and never easily defeated. The galaxy could challenge them, test them, and ignore them, but humans would always survive, adapt, and thrive. The sun rose higher, casting warm light over the starport. Jack walked through the hangars, checking the systems one last time for the day. Chip buzzed happily beside him. Traders, travelers, and curious pilots would continue arriving. The station would remain a beacon of human resilience. And Jack knew this was just the beginning. Humans had survived again, and they would continue to do so, no matter what the galaxy threw at them.